everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Liana. Today we are going to be talking about co-opted chronic illness and disability language. One of the ways that ableism becomes not only pervasive but highly normalized in our society is through our use of language. I don't just mean a language that demeans intelligence or use of ableist slurs, although that would be a good topic for another video. Rather, I'm talking about the co-opting of chronic illness and disability terminology when we already have existing language for what it is that we're trying to say. When we take language that is meant to convey specific lived experiences, whether that language is being used to communicate shared experience among community members or to explain our bodies and minds to caregivers, medical providers, friends, or family, it lessens the significance of these words. It waters them down into a commonality among all people, regardless of the fact that not every person will have these symptoms and conditions, and not all of them will have these symptoms and conditions. And when that happens, it becomes less likely that those who actually are chronically ill and or disabled will be believed. So what does this language actually look like? Well, here are just some of the phrases that I was able to think of off the top of my head and which existing words they are often used in place of. Anxious as opposed to nervous. Anxiety is a mental health condition that affects approximately 40 million people in the US. While millions of people live with anxiety, this is not the same thing as feeling nervous. You'd be hard-pressed to find a single person living today who hasn't felt nerves boiling up inside of them at one point or another. But anxiety comes in many different forms: generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, panic disorder, agoraphobia, and more. Nervousness is often an extremely in-the-moment and fleeting feeling that will not last, whereas anxiety can be episodic, have specific triggers, or even be constant. Nervousness is thought to be a normal evolutionary response to daily stressors, but anxiety can literally come out of nowhere and for no reason at all. Nerves are also something that most people can easily deal with, while anxiety can be truly debilitating, even leading to anxiety and/or panic attacks that consist of feelings of impending doom, inability to breathe, tachycardia, shaking, or blacking out. It's for all of these reasons that if we mean we're nervous, we should just say that we're feeling nervous rather than saying anxious. Depressed as opposed to sad. Just like anxiety, depression is a mental illness and it can be really severe. Depression affects at least 17.3 million adults in the US and approximately 280 million worldwide. Suicide is the fourth leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. Much like anxiety, depression can also come in different forms, such as major depressive disorder, seasonal depression, postpartum depression, and others. We all feel sad sometimes, but for most people, sadness is not a chronic feeling. Sadness is situational. If we experience the death of a loved one, for example, or a breakup, or even if we watch a certain movie or show, we might feel sad afterwards. Depression is a chronic mental health condition that can lead to a number of debilitating physical and mental symptoms, including thoughts of hopelessness that can increase the risk of suicidal ideation, and has even been shown to increase the risk of certain heart conditions in some people. Acute sadness doesn't do things like that. Sadness is the perfect word to describe an already well-known and easily understood emotion, and we should be using it. Bipolar as opposed to emotional or indecisive. Bipolar for many is still an incredibly misunderstood condition. I will still often hear people joke about themselves or others being bipolar simply because that person is either emotional or indecisive. If you're an emotional person, that does not automatically make you bipolar. If you have trouble making up your mind, that definitely does not make you bipolar. Bipolar is a condition that affects between 2 and 3 million adults in the US today. It's classified as both a mental health and a neurological condition. 15 to 20% of people with the condition die by suicide because of their symptoms being improperly treated or not treated at all. Severe depression and hypermania are the two biggest symptoms in people with bipolar, but this can look very different from person to person and can definitely look different from what is shown in mainstream media. It's often shown as somebody being overtly happy and energetic and bouncing off the walls 1 minute, and then the next minute they're falling into a puddle of sadness. The truth is that a single episode can last from days up to months before cycling into something else. Some people experience more hypermania, while some experience more depression, and others may experience both at the same time. Others still may have changes in mood that are so minor that some others might not even notice it. As the 6th leading cause of disability in the world, it would be a great idea to start learning more about this condition so that we can stop stigmatizing it through our language and actions. ADHD as opposed to energetic. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and a lot of people still think that it means that you are extremely energetic and nothing else. ADHD actually has a very wide variety of different symptoms and can present itself in a number of different ways depending on your age and assigned sex. For example, younger boys are more likely to display signs of hyperactivity, especially in school, which means they're more likely to be diagnosed than younger girls. In very young children, it might look like grabbing things like pencils and paper without asking. When they get a little older, it might look like procrastination, not doing their homework. For teens and adults, it might be hyper-focusing on something or difficulty making friends. More children than adults are diagnosed with ADHD, but there are still almost 3 million adults in the US with this condition. Considering it is possible for some people to have ADHD and not even be hyperactive, it's best to start using words like energetic when that is what we mean. OCD as opposed to particular. I'm so OCD, or we're all a little OCD, are two phrases I still hear frequently. These phrases are often used to conflate a real medical condition, which can be quite serious, to all of us having ways in which we like to do certain things or ways in which we're quite particular. OCD is not a simple matter of having quirks, idiosyncrasies, or just wanting things a particular way. As the International Foundation for OCD says, in order for a diagnosis of obsessive-compulsive disorder to be made, this cycle of obsessions and compulsions becomes so extreme that it consumes a lot of time and gets in the way of important activities that the person values. The average person all has things that they prefer to do, whether it's alphabetizing their books, that's me, or straightening photos. But this doesn't follow the above definition, wherein it becomes an obsession and or a compulsion so extreme that it affects the person's entire life. Someone with OCD, for example, may have to open and shut doors a certain number of times in their house before leaving. And if they don't, they may feel physical pain throughout the day just thinking about it. These routines can lead to poor sleep, intrusive thoughts, and lack of a social life. Only about 1% of the US population actually has OCD, or has been diagnosed with OCD, I should say. So how is it that we're all a little OCD then? Maybe that's simply not the case, and we should just say what we mean instead. Fatigued as opposed to tired. This might be the one on the list that gets used most often and most incorrectly. I talked about this in a video I did on spoon theory, which, as it happens, was also a discussion on co-opting chronic illness and disability language. But fatigue is not the same thing as being tired. Fatigue is typically a symptom of a medical condition, or it is the medical condition that causes other symptoms, as is the case with myalgic encephalomyelitis or chronic fatigue syndrome. ME/CFS affects up to 2.5 million Americans that we know of. But that estimate is probably off due to the fact that many doctors still don't know how to diagnose or to treat it. Fatigue means that your whole body basically ceases to function. For some people like myself, it can cause an inability to move. It can cause cardiac symptoms such as tachycardia and skipped heartbeats. It can cause issues with the bladder and bowels. It can cause sweating and or trembling. It can cause sensitivity to light and sound, and so much more. Being tired means that you're sleepy, only sleepy, and that if you get rest, you will feel better. Sleeping does not refresh you when you are fatigued. Nothing really refreshes you when you have fatigue. You have to rest as much as possible and wait and wait and wait until it passes, which can take days or weeks or even months. But people, including medical professionals, hear the word fatigue and think that you mean that you're sleepy. This is because the words have been used so interchangeably over the years by people who do not know, understand, or have experienced the difference. So while the actual word usage is a different kind of harm than saying something like, oh, I'm so bipolar, when a person is not bipolar, this conflation and confusion has led many people like myself to being disbelieved even in medical settings, which is still harm caused. If you are tired, please just say that. Those are just a few examples that I could think of, and all of this to say that when there is already existing language, it does cause harm when we take a word that does not fit us and our experiences. It leads to further stigmatization of both mental and physical illness, and really waters down that experience to the point where, well, if everybody's bipolar, then nobody is. If everybody's fatigued, then nobody is. Because it makes that experience so commonplace that it's like, yeah, oh, you're fatigued? Yeah, everybody is. I am too. It can't be that bad. Just get over it. But your experience and what you're describing actually isn't the same as somebody who's bipolar when you just mean that you're a little bit emotional. It's actually not the same when you're saying you're depressed, but you just mean that you're actually just a little bit sad because you just watched a movie. So language definitely really matters, and we have to keep pushing forward to ensure that we are not taking something that could be hurting somebody else along the way. So that was my video for today. Please let me know of any other language you can think of down below to contribute to the conversation. I'd love to hear from you. If you would like to follow me around the internet, I'll leave some more links down below where you can find me. If you want to subscribe, there's a button down below where you can do so. And if you don't want to, that's okay. I hope you and your loved ones are staying safe and well, and I hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.